Okay. Tadzoka Zagari, we're back here on Behind the Mic. Today being a Saturday night, and I've got my good friend, Tunaona Advocate Muribwera.
Ndiripo, zviri sei, how are you?
Tadzoka kuti timboona kuti tingaita sei panapa handiti tichitaura nyaya dzekumusha, and we want to welcome you once again to our program tonight, Behind the Mic, BTM. Ndo chirongwa chatinokwanisa kuti tiongorere kuti zvii zviri kuitika kumushanditika. Tina advocate wedu zvakare, advocate Chapwanya, patinenge tichikurukura nyaya dzatinenge tichiona kuti dzakamira sei. We want to welcome you once again to yet another program of BTM Behind the Mic, and we are here and we are live. Kana muchangobva mukusvika pachirongwa tinenge tichikurukura, the program is packed tonight. We've got quite a lot to discuss, so stay tuned and make sure you've got your coffee mug nearby, because it's going to get really hot right here. Thank you very much for joining us. Advocate, we just want to look at one or two things before we dive right into our show tonight. Do you want to introduce the show for us, please?
Right, thank you. Our viewers, thank you for joining us. How is your Saturday? I hope you are well, you are safe and well.
Right.
So tonight we'll discuss Behind the Mic, what's the current affairs in our dear beloved country. So obviously we're going through the news roundup and what's been happening.
Yes, tiritesa anditika tichiona kuti zvakamira 1-1. Saka just to begin our show tonight, we have a very interesting story here. We are looking at the statement released by the Misinformation Minister, Mrs. Mutswangwa. As you know, she released a statement yesterday following, following the denial of bail, Hopo Chungono yesterday. So she released a statement, and we're just going to dissect this statement and see kuti pane zvavari kutaurira minister wedu nasu uno. Muchangova mutibata pano pachirongwa che BTM Behind the Mic. This is a talk show. Yatinenge tichikumbira kuti kana if there's anything that you also want to contribute, you've got the comment section. Please feel free to use our comment section. Moona kuti if there's any comment, anything that you want to contribute to the program, you're more than welcome. Let's just dive right into it. Advocate, tine tomboterera kuti minister vari kuti chi panyaya ye kusungwa kwakaita mutapi wenhau wedu Hopo Ching'ono. Regai tinzwe kuti minister vari kuti chi. Let's hear what the minister is saying here.
Government would like to set the record straight.
Right.
On the arrest of Hopo Ching'ono and Jacob Garibuna and their subsequent appearance in court. We have noted with dismay a well-coordinated local and international misinformation and disinformation media campaign where the two are said to have been arrested for supposedly exposing alleged corruption cases in government. For the avoidance of doubt, Hopo Ching'ono was not abducted.
Okay.
He was lawfully arrested by the Zimbabwe Republic Police.
Right.
And he was not arrested for...
Okay, Ngati, let's start with that point. Minister, where misinformation, Minister, where information and publicity, Mr. Ching'ono was not arrested for exposing corruption. I think this is a common understanding. Everyone thinks it's purely because of that. But what do you think?
Yeah, this is very, very surprising statement coming from the so-called Minister of Information, which is probably the Minister of Misinformation. And it's really surprising. So what she's saying that Hopo was actually arrested for something else other than, what the corruption that he exposed, especially what was going on over the past few weeks, especially I think one of the highlights of it was sorry about that. Right, so it was about the scandal that involved I think it was Mnangagwa's son, about that company which was granted
That's Dax
tender
International, the company
from,
linked to
yes,
one of Mnangagwa twin boys.
yes,
Yeah.
Twin Boys, yes, Dax International,
Mm-hmm.
which was involved in a 60 million deal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously with regards to the coronavirus crisis that's happening at the moment. So these guys, what, from my own opinion,
Mm-hmm.
they know they are corrupt.
Yeah.
They know they are corrupt. So to say that there was some kind of misinformation from Hope Wachingwana to say that he was talking about the corruption, obviously exposing the corruption, and they didn't like it. So that's the reason why they arrested. There's no any other reason. He hasn't incited any violence as regards the 31st of July demonstration or anything like that. He hasn't done that. You see, so they are just trying to find a scapegoat to say, okay, we know that you have, exposed this corruption, but we are going to find out some trumped up charges to put you behind bars.
Yes, we spoke about this a few days ago, Chiti. What we were very sure of is they were going to deny him bail, at least to ensure the 31st of July passes, and then maybe they will consider the bail afterwards. I think what the minister is saying, because I listened to the statement, Varugutiyo, Hopo is not the first one to talk about corruption. And in fact, she argues that corruption, even before the emergence of Hopewell, everyone used to talk about corruption. So this is not, in fact, she's arguing that there are stories that were written even before. You remember Priska Mufumira, who was also a minister who was exposed and also arrested. That time, Hopewell was not known. So she's saying, how come those journalists that exposed Minister Mufumira's corrupt activities were not arrested? The only difference, according to the minister, as you will hear in her statement here, is because the difference is the other journalists did not call for this July the 31st, the overthrow of the government. She's arguing that that's the reason why he was arrested, because if we do a like for like comparison, we have journalists that exposed Mufumira. They were never arrested. Hopo exposed Obadiah Moyo. But on top of that, he went on to call for the unlawful overthrow of the government. Let's hear what the statement says here.
Exposing corruption.
Yeah.
He was arrested for using social media accounts to incite Zimbabweans to violently overthrow the government. Even though Hopo Chimono writes about corruption, he's not unique in this regard. All the newspapers in Zimbabwe, including independent publications, have written extensively about corruption in government and private sector.
Okay,
None
if you can stop it there.
who have written about the subject of corruption have been arrested for publishing the same.
Yeah.
This is because the government and the president of the Republic of Zimbabwe acknowledge and appreciates the role the media plays in the investigation and exposition of corruption. The Standard and the Zimbabwe Independent papers, together with the state media, reported on the NASA scandal that resulted in the arrest of former Minister Priska Mufumira. None of the journalists from these newspapers were arrested or censored for reporting in this case. In addition, the president appointed...
Right, does she have a point here? Advocate, I think she has made a very interesting point. Can we... Is there any substance in what she's saying here?
No, from what she's saying, it's very laughable, because she is agreeing that there is rampant corruption in government. Because what she is saying about Mufumira, to say that obviously she was arrested for corruption. But the first point that I want to mention is that she is saying that Hope Wachingwana, incited public violence, especially with regards to this 31st July demonstration. We have followed Hope Wachingwana's statements. He never said anything to that effect. So I don't really know where she's getting that from to say that he incited public violence to overthrow a constitutionally, appointed government. Chingono say he never said those statements even in his Twitter account. So he's just being used as as a scapegoat, because I think from my own point of view, it's the corruption in the government. I think it's just now too much. People know too much about this corrupt government. Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, you
Yes,
can
go
hear
on.
me. Right, yeah. So I was saying that because this corruption is just too much. Each and every week there is an issue about corruption in Zimbabwe from all corners. Right. So yes, what he did was he added on to the already corrupt activities of the government, and they didn't like it. They didn't like it because like now there are so many cases of corruption, and now to some extent she's agreeing to say that there's corruption within the government. That's the point that she said, right?
Right.
So the main point is, what are they doing about it? They've arrested Priska Mfumira. I think she's walking free. They've arrested Obadiah Moyo. I think he's still a free man. Even they arrested Ignatius Chombo, right? During the time of the November 2017 coup. What has happened to him, right? So these guys, they know they are
Second,
corrupt, but
catch and release card. This is what everyone is saying. Most of these arrests are just cosmetic to make things appear as if there is something they're doing about corruption, and yet they never really lead to a conviction. And we have many other examples, like you have given, Anana Chombo and the like. Kuti Vese Vagasungwa. I mean, they were dragged before the courts, but none of these cases have led to any conviction, and this is where the problem is. I think maybe to answer to what the minister is saying, the only difference between Vana Chingono and the other journalists who were writing on corruption, I think the major difference is the fact that Chingono is quite a prominent journalist, isn't it? These are the people that were, at least that led to the arrest of Priska Mufumira. They're not that prominent. I mean, they could have just been, I don't even know the guys who were writing those stories. I don't know if you know them. But I think Opo obviously poses quite a significant threat, in the sense that the world is willing to listen to him. And that's why he obviously is a threat to the regime. But for the minister to argue and say, Kutivana, they are journalists that wrote Nyayana, Priska Mfumira and the like, when we know very well those journalists are not even known. The international media were not even quoting them, but the likes of Oppo, who have worked for the New York Times, the ITV in the UK, and many others well-respected publications, they are more likely to be listened to by the West. And I believe at least the Western media were following what Oppo was tweeting and writing. So obviously the government felt they were exposed, and they had to deal with him. Saka, I think the minister is probably not aware of the fact that you cannot compare independent unknown, the so-called independent unknown journalist in Zimbabwe, and Hopo. Hopo is a larger than life figure, and we know very well kuti akasungirwa nyaya the corruption. Let's hear what the minister is saying.
Okay.
Let's listen. Maybe we can give it the benefit of the doubt here. Let's go.
The proprietor of Alpha Media Holdings, AMH, which is the biggest independent newspaper stable in Zimbabwe, to its Presidential Advisory Council, PAC. Such claims are deliberately being calculated to mislead and manufacture a false narrative, which brings into question His Excellency President E.D. Mnangagwa's sincerity in fighting corruption, both in government and private sector. Since coming into office as leader of the new dispensation, His Excellency President Mnangagwa has provided a favorable working environment for media practitioners to conduct their business unfettered. The Zimbabwe Independent from AMH publishes articles accusing government officials of corruption on a weekly basis without fail. But this has not attracted any arrest of the journalists concerned. The Second Republic, through Parliament, has repealed the IPA, which in the past was used against journalists, and replaced it with a raft of legislation aimed at protecting the rights of journalists to practice their profession freely and the rights of citizens to information concerning.
Yeah, this is where the challenge is, Kuti. I mean, she's making reference to IPA and POSA and all these legislations that were put in place to quell some of the activities of the journalists. She's arguing that those have been replaced. But this is all cosmetic, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not what is on paper. It's what they do, isn't it, Mr. Advocate?
Yes, exactly. It's what they do. Yeah, there's another point that I wanted to say before you moved on. You see, the kind of journalism that that's done by Hope Watching On is that kind of investigative journalism.
Right.
You see, these other journalists who are just like like ordinary journalists. They don't do investigative journalism. Because the thing is, there is ZAC, right? The Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission. And probably most of these other journalists, they knew about this corruption because ZAC had arrested the so-called, people who were accused of corruption, right? But with the Chingono's journalism, it's more of investigative journalism,
right,
bringing out the evidence that is not even in the public domain, right? Because if we look at this current RBZ looting list part 1 and part 2, we can actually see the extent to which these people benefited from the farm mechanization program, and almost all of them who are in government, they at least benefited like large amounts. I think we've done a broadcast in the afternoon where you see like the likes of Parents Shiri, they got $499,000 US, and some kind of distributions were done without strategic equipment distribution, which no one knows what it is about. And I actually laughed because from my own constituents where I come from, Buhera, there is an allocation of US 240,000, which was allocated to what they called Japania Business Center, of which, if you go to the business center, there's no development there. So who took the money? Where is the money? And the people are amazed to say, what? We granted $240,000, but we don't even know about it. So this is the kind of investigative journalism that's being done by Hope Wachungono. That's why he is behind bars, not to say that he has incited any kind of violence for a protest that hasn't even okayed. You see,
right?
Because
they are saying, Kuti, it's preventative, isn't it? It's preventative arrest. In other words, they cannot wait for him to overthrow the government before they act. It's like I don't know whether that's even valid at law, but we'll see what that
that's not
that
even
entails.
valid.
Muchangova mukutibata tiri pano pa BTM behind the mic trina advocate wedu advocate Chapwanya munoziva kuti vanokwanisa very renowned in this area of subject that we're discussing here tonight. Kana muchangova mutibata, you can also contribute to the program behind the mic BTM live talk show tichiona kuti zvakamira 1-1 sei kuZimbabwe. And tina minister of misinformation, she released a statement yesterday where she was giving the government reasons for arresting our dear Hopo Chungono. I think the guy who has been standing on our behalf. He has been fighting the battle many of us have failed to fight. So we give him props for that. We want to thank you for joining us. In case you also want to contribute, tine comment section iripo pa page pawakaterera ipapo, and there is a section where you can comment, pass your comment, and toona kuti tinokwanisa kuti kuisa ma comments enyu iri pa screen, and then we are going to be very no comment is not going to be highlighted. So if you want to contribute to the program, takatarisa nyaya dziri kubva kuna minister wedu, the government minister Monica Mutsvangwa, who speaks for the government. She speaks on behalf of the government of Zimbabwe, and some of the allegations leveled against the government, especially with regards to Hopewell Chingono's arrest, is the fact that when you compare, I think we saw a picture, Tawana picture, I think, I don't know if you saw it, Advocate Papa, a picture ya Obadiah Moyo, na Hopewell Chingono, and someone was doing a comparison yakuti, why is it Chingono comes to court in handcuffs and we are in a jeep, and I mean dzinonzi mota dzeku prison dzedze Santana. Yeah,
I don't know.
So and yet the minister drove himself in his probably 200,000 Land Rover, and he no handcuffs, no what vakangosvika, and he had an appearance, and that was it. Saka kana minister vachitaura kuti there is no difference between the arrest of Hopewell. In fact, there is a part where she goes on as we continue with this. We are going to listen to the minister panapa vachitaura kuti anzi mapurisa and the courts in Zimbabwe are impartial. They exercise their constitutional rights. They do whatever. But we know kuti the application of the law in Zimbabwe is selective. Saka regetinzo kuti minister vari kuti chimu changobva mutibata tiri pano BTM behind the mic. This is a live talk show. You are live listening to a program yatinotaura nyaya dzeku Zimbabwe. I know most of us are home and are far away from home, but this is one of the ways that you can get in touch with the news back in Zimbabwe. Let's just listen to what the minister is saying here before we pass the next comment.
President Mnangagwa ordered an investigation into the drugs affair before Hopewell Chingono started tweeting about it. As a result of these investigations, several arrests have been made. The most prominent of those arrests was that of the former Minister of Health and Child Care, Dr. Obadiah Moyo, who was charged and relieved of his duties as Minister of Health and Child Care. It is therefore false to state that no action has been taken against the corrupt individuals fingered by Hopewell's expose. The president has consistently shown his unflinching commitment to fighting corruption by setting up a robust legal infrastructure to fight this economic scourge. He has also spearheaded the funding of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission SPAC as a way of capacitating it to deliver. All
right, Saka, let's look at this. I think the comment that she makes, the Guti Minister Obadiah Moyo Vakasungwa, and she's arguing Guti the law is being applied across board. There is no selective application of the law here. And in regards to the picture that you're seeing on the screen, Advocate, what do you think? I think there's definite selective application of the law here.
Right. You know what this Minister of Misinformation is saying is utter hogwash. Why I'm saying that is because, if this minister, this Obadiah Mpofu, right, he is one of the corrupt persons in the administration of Mnangagwa's government. As we speak right now, he should be behind bars, right? Probably without any bail being given, but he's working on the streets. But yet the one who exposes corruption is the one who is being remanded in custody to 7th of August 2020. You see, there's that kind of selective application of the law just to victimize those who speak against the government. In any case, these so-called ministers or people who've been found to have had corrupt dealings or corruption, they should be behind bars, you see. Because in any case, if we have to look at it, who is a flight risk here? Is it Hopewell Chingono or the Obadiah
Moyo? Was he even charged of anything? I mean, Minister Obadiah Moyo, I don't think he was even put in remand prison for a few minutes. He just walked in the magistrate's court and he left this a few hours after that, isn't it?
Exactly. That's the point that I wanted to say. To say that yes, she is mentioning that Obadiah Moyo was charged, but he was never, because he's still working and he never spent
He did
probably a
not even
night in
spend the
prison
night
or in
remand prison.
remand prison, right? So is that not selective application of the law, right? So how many Obadiah Moyos are in government, considering the list that we have seen and all these underhand dealings or and everything like that, right? The people who must be in prison are the ones who are walking scot-free now, and the people who are in prison are the ones who are supposed to be out of prison, right? So there's that selective application of law, and she has mentioned about MH Holdings. I see Yana Ngrikiri, Zanuyu, Trevor Ncube, and these other
Yes,
guys
AMH and Ndoya
who are
Trevor.
affiliated to the ZANU-PF government, right? So obviously, in their government, so-called government, they've got factions in there, right? This one you can't touch, this one you can't touch. We know that very well, right? But when it comes to freelance journalists like Hope Watching on they just
Yes.
have to suffer the consequences, because he is actually doing a service to the nation by bringing out corrupt activities of the government, of people who are in government or individuals, yet he is the one who's going to be arrested and put in prison. And I would like to comment on the timing of the arrest. You can actually see as well that what is name, Jacob Ngaruvume and the mayor of Harare, they've all been given the same remand date up to the 7th of August. So this is kind of timely to say, okay, let's take care of the July 31st, because they are really panicking. They really don't know what's going to happen, right? And this is the sign of a corrupt government, because if they are, if it's a democratic government, they should at least let people give people bail. They've got the resources to contain the demonstration if they want to, right? The way they beat people, they've got those tanks and everything. They've got the
Those are
resources.
true is kuti. They say I think the constitution has provisions for such things, isn't it? That it's written on paper, and she was arguing kuti we repealed IPA, we repealed POSA, and all that. These are just they're not even worth the paper they're written on, these things, isn't it? It's just her making reference to past time. There, we know that the government of Zimbabwe does not respect its own laws, and she's trying to argue kuti they've made some progress by repealing IPA and POSA, and there's a new legislation that allows journalists to operate freely in Zimbabwe. But we know that the only journalists that we have that never get arrested are the ones that sing for the SAPA, Wanoshanda Gunana ZBC and the like. Saka, it's Minister Varutaura Padiva anditi zvese zvavarutaura, it doesn't seem to. And you see the interesting thing, the most interesting, this Monica Mutswangwa here, isn't she the same lady who was Nguva Dzana Grace? She was, I mean, she almost lost her life in including the husband. But varukukanganwa chane zuro nehope anditi.
And what there's another point that she said that which is not even valid at all. She said that Mnangagwa started the investigation even before Hope brought about the issue tax and that tender, right? Mnangagwa only started the investigation, the so-called investigation, because Pangapato Budanya, the corruptions, his son.
Yeah, and I'm sure everyone only got to know about it when we started seeing Hope's tweets, isn't it?
Exactly. So how on earth is she saying that Mnangagwa started the investigation before it was in Ngirigiri, the corrupt activities were published? How is that possible? So even if he later on started the investigation, it was just a cover-up, because he knew what was going on behind, because he's the president, he's got the powers. So
funny enough, I think the first family had their hands also dipped in the same pie, isn't it? I think we saw the first lady, this Ngwenya guy who was kind of formed this over the night company that eventually supplied 60 million worth of PPE that were worth probably less than $100,000, but they walked away with almost 59 million in profit.
In profit.
And we see this lady, the first lady. The guy is seen on pictures with the first lady at one of the charity functions, and all that kind of stuff. I think we see these things, and what is even more mind-boggling for me is the fact that Vana Monica Mutswanga, at one time, they fell out of favor with the establishment. I remember I even felt sorry for her. She was the women's league leader, and then Vana Gracie vakavadzinga as if they're vakadzingwa sembo yadzingwa mumba nditi. And they almost lost their lives. And Nana Kazembe, you remember that?
Yes, Kazembe.
That grace stand, Kazembe, we up and up. And this is the same guy, Ari, who's responsible for the police today, isn't he? And he only survived Nenye Wuti, maybe, Mwari, by the grace of God. That's the only reason why he is alive today. And you'd expect people, after going through all this, Kutimono would learn a thing or two. But we see immediately afterwards, they forget that they were given another lease to life because people intervened and ensured that they did not end up in jail. But Kanavazo Sununguka Manje, instead of extending that favor to the ordinary men on the street, they are now, behaving as if Ndova knows as we say. But as time will tell, Apana, there's no dictatorship that lasts forever. It's just a matter of time. Tichaona kuti kuchawira kupi kuchawira tsvimbo nedowende kupi. Yeah, tiri pano pachirongwa cheBTM behind the mic. Kana muchangobva mukutibata tiri kuona kuti we're just trying to ensure that we look at the headlines coming out of Zimbabwe. But nasu uno tiri kutarisa nyaya statement ya Minister of Misinformation Monica Mtswanga. She released a statement yesterday arguing that the government has every right to respond to any threats. It's a constitutionally, and in fact, when I heard her say Kuti, they're planning to overthrow a constitutionally elected government, and these are the same people that also led a coup, right? And Nasuno, it's a classic case of Mbava Idukubirwa.
Yeah, yes, certainly. Because the utterances of these like the likes of Monica Mtswanga and what's his name, Nick Mangwana, these are like what we call spin doctors. They are there to spin to turn the truth into lies, right, or vice versa. These are spin doctors. That's what they are there for. Because if you look at the history of this government, right, I can give you, like, a few weeks ago, there was a case where that Kazembe guy, he called, Talent Chiwenga a rabid preacher, right? And the Talent Chiwenga wasn't impressed, you see. So if anyone speaks against the government, they are labeled an enemy of the state, right? We know this government very well. We can talk of the disappearance of Ichai Zamara, because he was protesting against the government. So many people, right? So it's in their blood to say if someone speaks against the government at any time, they are labeled enemies of the state. Then they bring up trumped up charges, just frivolous accusations. This person is trying to overthrow a constitutionally elected government. Does Hopo have any ammunition? Does he have a secret police or secret service?
Other than a pen and paper.
Other than a pen and paper.
Yes.
You see, so they are freaking out because they know that people are not happy. People are struggling, and yet they are abusing the state resources by engaging all these corrupt activities, right?
And these are the same people who use the army to overthrow Mugabe, and they're the same people crying foul today. Not that we are advocating for we are not inciting any violence here, but we are just doing a parallel comparison here where you have the same people, in fact, the likes of Mtswanga's husband, whatever his name is, Christopher Mtswanga. These were the same people that were celebrating the overthrow of Mugabe by the army. And Mugabe was, as far as we know, it was a coup, and they overthrew a constitutionally elected government, and we didn't agree with it. Well, maybe the substance of it, but we know kuti the method that was used obviously was not right. But tiri pano pachirongwa che behind the mic BTM, kana muchangobva mukutibata tiri live and direct kuno tina advocate wevanhu, the people's advocate, Mr. Advocate Chapwanya vari kutibatsira kuti tiongorore kuti nyaya dziri kuitika kuZimbabwe dzakamira sei nhasi. Nhasi uno we are looking at the statement from the Minister Monica Mutsvangwa. Tiri kuona kuti yesterday she released a statement where she's trying to argue kuti nyaya dzecorruption hadzinotanga naHopewell. So in other words, she's trying to defend the actions of the government and the police. One interesting thing though, and she said actually at the beginning of the statement that he was not abducted, but if you arrest someone without a warrant, what do you call that at law? Because we know that mayor, lawyer wa Hopewell, I actually confirmed kuti apanga pasina warrant, there was nothing to show kuti at least some form of legal framework was being followed here. What do you call, even though they're arguing kuti they eventually sent him to the remand prison or to the police station, but the process in which he was taken was kind of dubious, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very dubious, very, very dubious, because if you just come and pick someone up, it might well be an abduction or kidnapping, actually, because you are taking that person against their wish without any proper procedures. So only they realized the scale of the, because Oppo is someone who is very known, widely known. So they actually went into panic, then tried to create some form of procedure to say that he has been arrested. Because remember, at one point they even denied that, but then they saw that no, this is the wrong way. Then they tried to put in some procedures to make it look like it's kind of real procedures had been followed, but of which, these guys, they can just come to your house in the middle of the night, then you can just be taken without anyone noticing, because they are capable of doing that, and we know that they do that all the time. So, but because the likes of Hopewell, just like the likes of Justina Mukoko at the time, these are prominent people who are known, and obviously if someone of that nature just disappears from the face of the earth, then obviously, the international community and everyone else would want to know, where is that person? So Monica Mutsvangwa, I see, and she's just a minister of misinformation, because she's paid to do that, to spin the lies to the people, because there's no substance in what she's saying at all. There's no substance, because I'm just waiting to see what sort of outcome will this Oppo case be, because they are saying that he's been charged with the offense of trying to overthrow a constitutionally elected government, which is kind of a very serious crime, and I'm just waiting to see how they will deal with this.
And the funny thing though, Advocate Kuti, the evidence they are presenting for that, for trying to overthrow a constitutionally elected government, is a tweet, right?
It's a tweet.
That's the only evidence, because I saw the whole thing, and I'm thinking, so Twitter has become so powerful now that you can just by merely tweeting, you could actually be planning to overthrow a government. Saka kana taswika pama levels akadaro, then it's we are giving Twitter a lot of I don't think kuti ivo varidzive Twitter think kuti it's that powerful, but there you go. Yes, we'll take a short break here. Panapa kana mchangobva mutibata zvakare sekutaura kwataita tiri paBTM behind the mic, ndo show yatinokunzirai zuva nezuva patinenge tichitaura nyaya dziri kubva kuZimbabwe. Nhasi unoti achitarisa Madam Minister is trying to justify the actions of the government, but tichaona kuti izvo pakupera kwe statement yavo can we say kuti she has done a good job? Kana muchidawo kuti mu contribute pa show yedu yatinayo naso pa BTM panapa, use our comment section. It's open to anyone that wants to contribute, and if you feel kuti you do not agree with some of the points that we've made here, please feel free. We would like to hear from you. In case you also want to take part, you're more than welcome also to join us here live on air. Kana magazwi shingisa kuti mukwanise kubuda pachirongwa. We will be sending a link where you can actually click if you think you can also contribute. We'll take a small break and we will be right here. We'll be right back right here on BTM. Right. Okay, yeah, tadzoka zvakare pano pa BTM. Tiri pano pachirongwa chatiri kutarisa nyaya kuti kwakamira sei kuZimbabwe. Handiti kana muchangobva mukutibatira zvakare. Tiri kuona panapa statement yakariliswa naMinister Mutsvangwa. Let's just listen to this let's hear what she's saying.
On its constitutional mandate. This has seen an unprecedented arresting and summary dismissals of those two cabinet ministers in a short space of time. The conviction and jailing of high-profile individuals such as former Minister Same Undenge, Douglas Tafumanei, and Simon Taraniki, and many more, is also indicative of the zero tolerance to corruption policy. The arrest of these two, that's Hopel, Chingono, and Garivumi individuals, clearly has nothing to do with their anti-corruption stance, which finds convergence with President E.D. Mnangagwa's own position, but their ploy to violently destabilize the country and unconstitutionally seize power by any means necessary, thus putting Zimbabwean lives and property at risk. The role of foreign powers in this plot to instigate an illegal regime change in Zimbabwe is made apparent by a set of events and statements that followed the police operation. Within minutes of arrival of the police at Mr. Chingono's home, the US Embassy was already all over this issue, which is between a sovereign country and its citizens, by tweeting and trying to bring pressure to bear on the Zimbabwean government so it would not enforce the law of the land. Its particular interest in this one person is curious in the list. Other Western embassies, who usually take the USA's lead, joined in this irregular interference by tweeting and releasing statements which were calculated to obstruct the course of justice in a hosting country. Even after Zimbabwe's independent judiciary had issued its verdict on the duo's bail application, a senior member of the US administration issued a very derogatory and undiplomatic statement against the government of Zimbabwe, showing condescending disrespect to a sovereign country. Zimbabwe is keen to engage with all members of the community of nations, but will not surrender its sovereignty as a trade-off for this. All what Zimbabwe seeks is mutual respect and non-interference in its internal affairs. Going forward, government will not compromise on Zimbabwe's national security and expects all foreign embassies hosted here to behave with propriety as set out in the Vienna Convention. All the aforesaid is happening in the context of Zimbabwe's fight against COVID-19 pandemic. At this moment, Zimbabwe, like the whole world, faces the threat of the pandemic. The Zimbabwe government has done reasonably and surprisingly well today, up to date. Indeed, it has confounded detractors and doommongers. Hopewell and Ngarivume belong to that camp of evil wishers. The begging question is why call for a violent uprising in the midst? The begging question again, and I say, why call for a violent uprising in the midst of a raging and ravaging COVID-19?
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
All right. I think I actually went for almost 2 minutes saying something without realizing my mic was on mute. Yes. Thanks, Mr. Chapwanya. I think mine was statement Yavakuna Minister Mtswangwa here. She's saying Kuti. I was just listening to it and thinking, hey, you know what, Dai Pangapani is something I could have actually kicked desk Panapa just, I mean, from the way I feel actually from what she's saying. Saka she's saying Kuti Hopewell was involved in some violent uprising. Is there even evidence to support that? I think what she's saying is I don't know how to even describe it. It's just surprising Kuti someone would come out there and say Kuti Hopewell was in connivance with the Western governments and all that, but all they are merely saying Kuti the reason why you are targeting him. What's that popular saying Kuti anzi chembere yashaikwa berera yeah, right. In other words, Pargunzizo, there is definitely a link between the expose Hopewell and the arrest. You know, no matter how much you may want to deny it, even Mwanamudiki can see that.
Right. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes. Because what she is saying now, you see, the problem with ZANU-PF has always been this, right? Whenever someone goes out and say this government is corrupt, or they complain about human rights abuses, or they complain about anything as citizens, they are quickly labeled like to be conniving with the West. You see, like the United States, the United Kingdom, or other Western countries. They are quickly labeled. They quickly put that label to say it's because the United States wants a regime change in Zimbabwe, but people are complaining about actual issues where they are not happy, because how can we be happy about corruption and just keep quiet when we see that things are not going well, right? So the problem with ZANU-PF is anyone who speaks about anything bad they do, they are quickly labeled an enemy of the state, or they are working with the Western governments to overthrow the government. Now she has said that Hopo is planning to overthrow a government violently. We don't have any evidence of that. We haven't seen that. He hasn't said that. And we've said that he doesn't have any links to the police or the militias or anything like that. So how would he overthrow a government violently, without any resources? The only thing that he has is his pen, because that's his work. So he should be able to expose corruption, you see.
And the interesting thing, sekutaura kwamurikuita advocate, ndeyekuti we have heard this song before, and even in Goa they call themselves the Second Republic.
Mm-hmm.
But this chorus is I mean, sounds quite familiar, because even in Munguva Yamugabe, we were told every time they would do something stupid, they would then blame it on interference. Here they're interfering in our affairs and all that, and yet all they are saying is, no, hang on a minute, can you at least treat your own people? They are not even defending Americans or Europeans here. They are only calling for a fair treatment of Zimbabwean citizens. Is it more of a classic case here, kuti kana baba vepa next door vachiona baba ve pamba vachirova vana, then you then say kuti why are you, I mean, you know what I'm trying to say, kuti kana vataura kuti usarove vana vako, vana ndevako. Saka, and then you would know, why are you interfering in the affairs of my home? But I think muno ane fungwa, and it at least would look at the substance of what they are saying. Could, okay, maybe they have a point. I think the problem we have kwedu Zimbabwe, with every time when someone says bata yo vana venyu zvakanaka, we hear, you're interfering in our affairs, you're what. And I mean, I keep getting back to the issue here, kuti vana Mutswangwa, this very, very lady, you remember nguva ya Grace?
Yes.
Grace, yes. I mean, she was expelled from the party, and they were almost throwing her in jail, and until obviously she was rescued by the fact that Pakazuita coup. But you would expect, after someone has gone through all that, at least she will come out and say, you know what, let me be different from the regime that we've overthrown. But they've just even made the situation for an ordinary man worse,
even worse
than it was during Mugabe's time. I think we will just listen some more to what Mrs. Misinformation is saying here, and then we will see whether we can do another couple of minutes before we round this up. But kana mchangova mutibata tripa BTM behind the mic. This is a show yatinoita zuva nezuva to highlight the most interesting stories coming out of Zimbabwe, please feel free to use the comment section if you have anything that you want to contribute. You don't have to agree with us. We are very generous in our a review of your comments. If there is anything, if you think we're just talking Zunus Nambasa, you are more than welcome to disagree. But all we're trying to highlight is kuti Zunus Rugu Zimbabwe, so I think all of us, any normal person understands kuti there is really something wrong with our country, and it's been like that for as long as I can remember. And we're just, continuing to highlight some of these ridiculous things that continue to happen in our country, especially with Hopewell, who has been a champion in exposing corruption in the country. And instead of addressing the issue at hand, all they are doing is attacking the person who's exposing it. That's a very classic case of kupererwa, right? If someone doesn't have anything to do and any more cards to play, they go for the easy option, a tackle. And this is exactly what they are doing if we were to bring football into this. So we will just listen a bit more to what the minister is saying here, and then we will look at the analysis.
The ongoing USA elections are a big Republican Party it's seen they've stopped the big Republican Party in Jacksonville. Why can't the detractors and doom-mongers equally copy this act? If they have cancelled their meeting because of COVID-19, we would like this act to be also replicated. Western embassies should provide counsel to the regime change charges that this is not the hour to play dice with the lives of Zimbabweans. This is the season of Black Lives Matter. After the choking to death of George Floyd by a cruel white police officer in Minneapolis in USA, we have traveled and suffered from their past depredations. It's not democracy they want.
All right. It was just a matter of time before she brought, we knew she was going to bring Black Lives Matter into this. And already she's arguing that if the Republican Party has cancelled its convention, so it also makes sense for the people in Zimbabwe not to continue the plans of July 31. Munozona say zvataurwa pana minister.
Right. Yeah. This minister of misinformation, she really doesn't know what she should say. Isn't she the one who said, the days when COVID started, isn't she the one who said it's kind of a white man disease or something like that, But guess what? Today we have got so many COVID cases now in our country. So and she, the Western government to overthrow the government. Now she has said that Hopewell is planning to overthrow. The days when I think there's a feedback coming.
Okay, go on.
Right, yeah. right. So she's talking about the Black Lives Matter, right? The most important question she should ask herself is, she should ask herself if Zimbabwe lives matter, because these guys, they've been in power for some time, and she cannot compare the Black Lives Matter, the killing of George Floyd, yet they are also oppressing their own people, right? And as I said before, they say they've got the resources. If the demonstration has to go ahead, why can't they control it in a nice way without victimizing people, right? Rather than to say, okay, the Americans, the Republicans, they fought off their protest in Jacksonville, so we are gonna do the same. Doesn't really make sense. These are two different, jurisdictions, two different countries, right?
because in America there's democracy. Yes, people they are killed and stuff like that, but there's always democracy in America. They don't prevent people from protesting. They don't prevent people from protesting. But in Zimbabwe, if they think that or suspect that it's an opposition protest and they want to overthrow the government, you see, that's when they start to say, protest cannot go on because they know that they are corrupt. They know that people are not happy. They know that you know, every citizen, they are crying now. People are dying, people they are hungry, people are crossing into other countries because of their mismanagement. So at the end of the day, if you look at her, because she is one of the beneficiaries of the looting that's going on in Zimbabwe, at the end of the day, even if she knows the truth, she will have to defend the government that she knows is rotten to the core. So I don't think there is you know, any sense in comparing the Jackson file, cancellation and, the July 31st, because now they've already kind of, would say, convicted watching on it because they are saying that he's going to violently overthrow the government, of which something like that hasn't happened. You see, they are just assuming, you see. So it's unfortunate that she thinks that way, but as I say, because she's protecting her interest. Obviously, she has to defend this corrupt government.
Yes. Yeah, that's quite interesting because Seutoro Maita advocate kuti ambuya vari kungotaura. We have a comment here from Munya Gengeja who's saying, do they even know the meaning of democracy? I think they talk about democracy just like any other government in Africa. We like hiding behind the word democracy, but when it comes to the real meaning of what democracy is all about, in fact, she makes reference to Black Lives Matter, and we know Black Lives Matter. The irony of it is those that were involved in the illegal activities around George Floyd, we know they were arrested. If we do a like-for-like comparison, we know in Zimbabwe, if the same had happened in Zimbabwe, we know that the police officer would have been promoted. The protest would not have been allowed to go ahead. But she's trying to hide behind Black Lives Matter, which is an organization that was allowed by the authorities in the US to at least protest. And for her to even make reference to Black Lives Matter is very insulting because, and I mean, she's hiding behind the fact that George Floyd died, but she's refusing to acknowledge that Black Lives Matter is actually a protest movement that is the same movement that we are crying for in Zimbabwe, to be able to be given the permission to express our God-given right to protest. Right. So Taiwana comment Yavakuna Munya. Thanks a lot, Munya, for your comment. And democracy, Seutoro Gomaita, is something that is foreign to Zimbabwe. We are still yet to be emancipated, as Bob Marley saying. We're all waiting for that emancipation. We are here on BTM. Behind the mic, Tina Advocate Wedu, the People's Advocate Chapwanya, tiriku ruongorora nyaya tinayo nasuno yiri kubva kuna statement yakapuwa na Mrs. Mutsvangwa. Si zama kuti siponi ndava leyi kuti hamba njani lapa o Mrs. Mutsvangwa, who is the misinformation minister if you like of Zimbabwe, uzama kuti esicebise lapho ukuthi kuhamba njani eZimbabwe, but we know ukuthi uyazikhulumela nje njengomuntu omdala nje. So siyabonga lonke ukuthi lizama likwanisa ukuthi lijoin lapha ku BTM Black Behind the Mic. This is a program once again esikhuluma ngendaba ezenzakala eZimbabwe. Nxa lifuna ukuthi lani li-contribute sile comment section lingahamba ku Facebook page yet where you're probably watching this from. There is a comment section. Please feel free to contribute. We've already seen a few comments here. We have a comment from Tahu, who is saying that Vanongoti, there is no hope for Hopewell Pakuita say. I don't know what that means, but I'm sure you were trying to say something. How you leaders? Thanks, Negutipam Updates. Thanks a lot for your comment. And then we have another comment here. Thanks. That's a good analysis. Yes, we're trying advocate chapwanya varikuzama kuti vatibetsere kuti tione kuti zvakamira sei panapa. Teacher, let's just listen a bit more to what the minister has to say.
They paid a heavy price to attain it from the conquering colonials. They did not give up Zimbabwe on a platter. It's cruel self-enrichment from our resources that they seek. Please, why can't you give Africa a break? As Zimbabwe, we are saying we can't breathe. They are sprouting shouts. Their actions are premised on the fear that President Mnangagwa and his deep-seamed economic and financial reforms have taken root, that they are beginning to pay off in reviving the economy and rekindling hope. Blood-sucking money launderers and other dirty players in our fiscal and financial players are being squeezed by the succeeding weekly auction of foreign exchange. The mobile money platforms are being husbanded into the central bank RBZ. The all-important energy sector is now full of promise from huge investments in Matabeleland North, as can be seen from the recent visit by President E.D. Mnangagwa to that region. The mortal fear of Africa by the West is the economic success of self-sustainable African nations. Zimbabwe now offers that prospect after braving through devastating sanctions by the West for 2 decades. No wonder the pandemic being engendered by the fear of a good example, a threat of a good example. President Mnangagwa and his government are fully appraised on this evil agenda and devilish machinations, who keep the course of free engagement while safeguarding the nation from a slide to chaos. I thank you sincerely.
All right, that's quite painful. Zvinorwadza kuteerera zviri kutaurwa nambuya apa advocate. I think she mentioned a few things. Do you want to pass your comment on this?
You know, this lady, she's very misinformed. She knows what's happening, but she's very misinformed. You know, if I can compare her, you remember the Iraqi war in 2004.
Comical Ali.
You remember Comical Ali?
Yes.
I would compare it to Comical Ali.
Yeah, we had this a similar character actually in Libya. You remember when Gaddafi was deposed?
Yes.
As well. We had the same Comical Ali image in Libya as well, and yeah.
Yes, Comical Ali would come and say, "We have killed the Americans. We have killed them. We have killed so many." You see, right?
Yes.
But guess what? The next thing, he was hiding in a cave,
right,
somewhere. Yeah. So her utterances are like that of Comical Ali, because it's just propaganda, spin doctoring. This is what she's doing, right? Her comments are so amazing and so foolish, right? How many millions are given in aid to Zimbabwe by the Americans, and they are the ones who misuse those, that aid,
yes,
right?
They take it and rebrand it with ZANU-PF.
With the ZANU-PF
branding, and tell the villagers kuti ZANU yenyu iri kukuitirai zvakati. Yes.
But in the public, they'll be dissing ZANU-PF, these colonial masters and so forth. They want to, have a regime change in Zimbabwe, this and that. But behind the scenes, they are taking the checks from the Americans. But what an irony! What an irony there,
No, she doesn't even believe what she's saying.
She doesn't even believe. If that mask she has got on, that big mask that she has got on, if it was off, I would see no confidence on her face about what she's saying. because
Right.
she's just saying Atawog was here because people are suffering. Where are the jobs, the 2 million jobs that
She's
we've
reading from somewhere. I think there's a teleprompter in front of her, isn't it? She doesn't seem to
yes.
be that clever to at least articulate what she's been trying to say. But
Yeah.
I mean, she's just a spin doctor, like you put it earlier.
Yes. Yeah.
Vanongomuisa pamberi pevanhu kuti ataure zvaanenge anzi ataure, handiti?
Yeah, I think that's the case there because she's talking about the economic resuscitation that's being done by Mnangagwa. There's nothing like that. We haven't seen anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And those people, vanochinja vanobhena mari, those are the people who are in high places in ZANU-PF.
Mm-hmm.
Right, those are the ones who are benefiting. Those money changers, some of the money changers, they actually work for the guys in ZANU-PF. I know of a certain guy who would carry a bag like $100,000. Then they go on the black market to spin it. Then they make profit for the Munanenga Batuma and also for themselves.
They don't even want things to change because they're benefiting from
So in terms of the economy,
the system, yes.
In terms of the economy, there is nothing. It just is stagnant. Nothing is happening because people, they've got no jobs. Where are the 2 million jobs they promised? What's really happening? Apana economic is not even moving. All the industries are closed. Most companies are closed. They are not functioning. Saka, where is the economic regeneration that she's talking about? We cannot see it
she
here.
said something about Matabeleland. I think, did she say there's a lot of investment going into Matabeleland or something?
Right, probably I might have missed that part, but whatever she is saying, no one will believe her, especially knowing what's on the ground in Zimbabwe, right? No one will believe her. And even those Western countries, they can actually see they've got teams who are probably on the ground in Zimbabwe and they know what's really happening. So she cannot lie to say that there is economic change in Zimbabwe. Mnangagwa is doing this and that. Yet there is nothing that they are doing. They are just stealing money, putting in their pockets, putting in their offshore accounts, and letting the whole of Zimbabwe suffer. Because for them, they went into government to steal, not to save the people. That's what I know. Because I remember when Mugabe was put out of power in 2017. Chris Mutsvangwa jumped like a toddler.
Yes,
he was so happy. If you remember the video, he was so
remember
happy.
seeing that. I think that footage at the airport. I think
airport.
Jamba kunge.
Yes.
Kunge muna win a lottery. Yes.
Kunge muna win a lottery, and he was so happy. Yes, he was so happy because he knew that this is the chance to loot. This is the chance to make money in order to save the people. And they just bring this Trump card to say, we fought the liberation struggle. But it looks like it's for their own gain, not for the people of Zimbabwe. Because these guys, they really don't care about anyone. To listen to Monica Mutsvangwa speaking like that, it actually makes me very angry, or any other level-headed Zimbabwean person. Zvinorwadza because
zvinorwadza zvokuti munhu wakateerera, so you just feel helpless and just wonder kuti does she really believe what she is saying. Tiri pano pachirongwa cheBTM, si lapa kuhlelo olwe BTM behind the mic. This is a live talk show, not pre-recorded. You're listening to us live. If there's anything that you want to say or to contribute to the show, if you do not agree or you want to add to the program, please feel free to use our comment section. We are streaming live into YouTube. Also, we've got our the stream is also feeding into Twitter and a few other platforms that we are collaborating with. Please feel free to use our comment section. We are just going to go into the back and forth. So soon after this address, the minister was involved in a back and forth with journalists. At least there are some journalists in Zimbabwe that we can rely on. She was asked some very tough questions after her statement there. Let's just listen to what the journalists were asking her here.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, here you go. Rules. All right. Just put your hand up for a second. Allow me to breathe. physical distance.
Distance. Yeah, sure, Pana.
Quite social because we have socialize So physical distancing. Right. 4 questions related. For the son?
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. You were very clear in your statement. You indicate that the arrest is primarily to do with their attack or influence to cause a revolt. Knowing that this case is now before the court, are you not probably blaming the sort of decay that is only before the court? And since you've taken that liberty to devour into it, looking at the treatment received by the Minister, Prime Minister Palermo, and the manner in which Oppo was arrested, how would you equate the two? Do you think there's justice in the both arrests? Yes, they've been arrested. Other one comes to court. Hands in the pocket and shining, his body shining. The other one comes to court handcuffed, and this house broken into, and
I think the question that the reporter is asking here, I don't know if you caught it, Mr. Advocate.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Yes, I think that we touched on it at the beginning of the show, Kuti, and she's trying to strike a compromise between the handling of the arrest of Wopo Chingono in comparison to the actual perpetrator of a crime, who is the minister, Obadiah Moyo. Let's hear what the minister's response is here.
and as well as they go and seize this piece of trade, the camera and other things. In your own view as the government, do you think that justice is being served? Two cases. One criminal come to court with his handbag being carried on by the prison officers, should come to court from the remand prison, wearing smartly dressed like others, would come with those prison garb and for those change, put on new clothes. In your own view, do you think that justice is being served in a partial and professional manner?
It's a very long question. Thank you, Polisani. Aru?
Minister, the government has for years been saying that certain individuals are with Western embassies. What actual proof does the government have?
All right. Mine's were a question kunyorwa pasi.
Yeah, that one.
The United Nations High Commission for Human Rights says it is concerning that the Zimbabwean government may be using the COVID-19 pandemic as a pretext to clamp down on freedom of expression and freedom of peaceful assembly and association. What do you have to say on this?
Vari kunyepera kunyora tiri kuvaona kunyepera kunyora zvekuti tifunge kuti pane chichapindurwa ipapa pandiri.
Because if the United Nations has also raised some concerns about the fundamental freedoms, it's right. I think
against a sitting government. So my question now is, a lot of people have been tweeting and retweeting what they say, and they've also been sharing the same views. What are we going to be seeing? Are we going to see more and more people being arrested for the same crime which Oppo and Joe government are being accused of? Or do you have a
I don't know if you caught that. Did you catch the case?
For this round, we got some of Please hold, and you probably be like the next round. Honorable Minister, when you're ready.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. And I'm glad because most of the questions which are being asked are actually in my speech. I think if there's anything, I'll then go back and read again because like what Tolisani is asking is about whether there's treatment of was it that do I think that is just being served? I would like to say the judiciary, the police of this
Listen to
country
this.
work according to the constitution.
And listen to this.
And how they treat their suspects is something which is according to the book. And I would have no reason to
Murgus is the advocate. Yeah.
According to the book, no way.
No, she's more than prepared to kunonzi kunyeba kukuti you get to the point of even believing your own lies. Yeah?
Your own lies.
She knows kuti there's no book that the police follow. That's number one. Number two, the reporter asked a very valid question kuti why is it kuti pakasungwa Obadiah Moyo akauya ari in his he was actually chauffeur driven to the court and he appeared in his nice polo shirts and everything was kind of staged. I mean, even Mwanamdiki can see that. And Parkunzi apatine munhu who exposed the corruption that Obadiah Moyo was involved in, and she vakasvika kumba Hopewell. They did not produce a warrant of arrest. They did not tell him his rights. Kuti mapurisa, and you know better than me on this. Kuti that statement that tells you kuti you've got the right to remain silent, and even his rights were not read to him, and it.
They were not even read to him.
Then she has the stomach to tell us kuti they do everything by the book.
Yeah, those are just pure lies because, we really very well know that the police, they don't do anything by the book. Even the judiciary, they are compromised, you see. So there's no way she can say everything is done by the book. And I feel sorry for that journalist in a blue suit who asked that question. They might even start following him because, you see, those are the kind of things that ruffle their feathers, because they don't want that kind of confrontation. And I hope that they won't follow him to his house or anything like that because they are really good at that.
As long as you are an nobody, you don't command any influence like Hopewell. Because the challenge, that's why they use them, my journalist as a reason to argue kuti we have some form of independence in Zimbabwe because we've got independent journalists. But these are little known journalists. No one knows about them, and even whatever they write never really leaves Harare, so to speak. But Hopewell is someone who a tweet alone maybe would hit the Congress and even senior people in Western governments were reading his tweets, and this is what they don't want because they know that once you have a prominent journalist like Hopewell who commands such a following, the same statement Yavunzwa Naningu would have caused Hopewell some serious problems because they know I know he's got so much reach. Akanyora a tweet, even Najin jumping to China. So ndo pane issues. These other journalists are just cosmetic. They know that they're not really serious journalists. But we're happy that at least he's got the guts to ask such a question. But let's go to the what. Yes.
And one more point. There's a journalist who asked to say, so if anyone writes something on Twitter to say anything, are you going to arrest those people? Right? As you are rightly saying that obviously they don't worry about these ordinary journalists, but people like Hope, obviously they have to follow, because if we all go on Twitter and say that let's do the demonstration on the 31st of July, they won't arrest everyone. They only
Yes.
arrest probably specific people. And I also want to comment on the statement of the United Nations, where they said that the government of Zimbabwe have to respect people's fundamental rights and freedom to association and speech. Right? You see, the UN is also worried of what's going on in Zimbabwe, because from there on they can actually see that people are being denied their fundamental rights to demonstrate or to say anything, or to freedom of speech or association. You see, of which if there were like a clever government, they would have allowed the protests to go. But now it shows that they are not even ready to respect people's rights, and this causes worry to them, because the whole world is watching, isn't it? So we have a problem there. So they might keep on spinning, putting on their spin, the propaganda and everything, but it won't help, because the whole world knows. Everyone knows what's going on in Zimbabwe in terms of politics and the respect for human rights.
Yeah, and I think you touched on this statement. Yeah, United Nations Human Rights. Yavataura kuti they are worried kuti COVID is now being used as a way of clamping down on legitimate protest, and also they are arguing kuti, and funny enough, the minister mentioned Black Lives Matter, which was allowed to protest under the same circumstances that he's saying we cannot allow people to protest in Zimbabwe. Black Lives Matter protests were one of the largest protests in actually at they even happened right in places like New York, which had one of the most prevalent cases of COVID, and you'd expect could be places like Harare, at least, where the prevalence is quite low, and you would expect them to allow that protest to go ahead. But who am I? They obviously know better than we. So we want to thank you once again for joining us here on BTM as we conclude this program for tonight. We have been looking at the statement released by the government yesterday, and in response to some of the allegations or the accusations rather from the independent media, including the human rights, the United Human Rights Commission, I believe, who they released a statement that was very critical of the way the government is behaving, especially when it comes to the way they arrested Hopewell and obviously hiding behind COVID to trample on the rights of the ordinary man in Zimbabwe. And this is how things have always been. I'm sure if there were we know last year kwanga kusina COVID, but the same protests were also not allowed. So for them to try and hide behind COVID, we know this is all lies, because you remember Vanat Chamisa wanted to do a protest last year, which they came up with another excuse to not allow it to go ahead. But tinoziva kuti hapana kwazvichasvika. These are just kicks of a dying horse, and this horse has been dying for some time. But we hope this time it will ichafa kuti fi. Anditika pano pa BTM behind the mic kuongorera. We're looking at the stories that are coming out of Zimbabwe, and particularly we've been looking at the statement from the minister. Sizama kuti sibone kuti singabonisana yini lapha ukuthi indaba le eka Hopewell lo ngaruvume. These two gentlemen who are at the forefront of trying to represent us, we know very well that the government is trying to hide behind COVID. So as we come to the end of yet another BTM program, thank you very much for listening, and we just want to conclude by hearing what the minister has to say. This is the last part of the program while we, as we conclude. Let's hear what other questions the minister was asked.
Think that they do things otherwise. And in this particular case, Tingono has been, and the other question came from Haru. I think I want to tie it together with just for those who may have missed it. They are actually, again, and I insist, Hopewell Tingono was not taken because he exposed corruption. No. And I want to repeat that. He was lawfully arrested by the Zimbabwe Republic Police. And this is, as you said, somebody said, you are talking about this when it's still in, yes, that's why I cannot go into the details because it's prejudicial. I'm actually talking about the reasons why Hopo Chingono and Garivume were arrested. For those who may want to understand, they contravened Section 187, 1A, is read with Section 37, 1A, I of the Criminal Law Codification and Reform Act, Chapter 9.23. And I just want that very, very clear that those are the charges. As to to Haru, I think again it is very clear that there was interference. You talk about how is it that there's been this talk that there are individuals working with Western embassies. What proof does government have? And I think I gave that information. Very, very clear. When I talked about the role of foreign powers in this plot to investigate an illegal regime change in Zimbabwe, and I really indicated the events which happened, especially when we are talking about the arrest of
Yeah, looking at the illegal regime change point that she makes there, and we know very well that the only people or who are known to have overthrown a legitimately in quotes elected government, the government of Robert Mugabe, are the same people that are talking about illegal regime change. They're the ones that masterminded the illegal regime change of Mugabe. So it's quite interesting, and it's an irony that she is still using that as a point to defend their illegal actions. What do you have to say about that?
Right. You see, the way she is kind of narrating it's it's really surprising, as you are saying that these are the same people who instigated a coup in 2017 and removed Robert Mugabe from power. And these are the same people who are saying that, there's some kind of regime change, going on behind the scenes from foreign governments, right? But, these utterances, are coming from someone who actually, who must be in prison for being part of a coup, which ended in the overthrowing of Robert Mugabe. So, the irony is just amazing. How on earth would she talk about an overthrowing a government, yet she is in the same position at this moment? She benefited from that coup.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing. How would we respect or we even respond to her? Yet we know that they overthrew Robert Mugabe in 2017. And
it's quite interesting that we didn't have any journalists to actually challenge them, but obviously they know that once you go down that route, you are creating problems for yourself. But I would have challenged her on that point because we know, and especially her husband was one of the people behind the coup, and as you know, he used to be what was he? Some war veterans leader or something, and the war veterans are the ones that were really behind the coup and a few others. And we know Mutswanga still holds that position. I think he's still the chairman of the war veterans in Zimbabwe. So it is interesting that she keeps making reference to that when we know very well kuti i-classic case yekuti mbavha haidi kubirwa nditi kana
Yes, certainly.
kana ukangobira mbavha inopenga zvakaipa.
Inotsamwa zvisingaite.
All right, let's listen again to.
And I want to repeat that there is a lot more evidence, but this is what I gave you, that within minutes of the arrival of the police at Mr. Chingono's home, the US Embassy was already all over this issue, tweeting and trying to bring pressure on the Zimbabwean government.
Yeah, but to be fair to the US Embassy, I think they were following just like any other Zimbabwean. I think Hopewell was actually live on his
yes, he was live.
Yeah, when they arrested him, and also he had kind of indicated that, as you know, people had been telling him that they are planning this. And everyone pretty much knew that at one point. In fact, I think a few days before that, he had released a statement saying that if anything happens to me, in other words, he was preempting his arrest. So for them to even argue that the US Embassy was all over the case when everyone knew that this was coming, so they would have been following it the moment they, and as people that obviously have an interest in the likes of Hopewell. I think he's a larger than life figure, as we have said earlier. He's someone who had given us hope to believe in ourselves again, and it would be foolish to think that there was no one following or even wanting to see what will happen with him. And the minister again is let's regret into to minister.
So it would not enforce the law of the land. I think I spoke to that. And then privilege, the United Nations for Human Rights. I think I spoke again to that. COVID-19 is real. I even gave an example in the United States where they've actually cancelled very important meetings. This is COVID-19. It kills. It's about life.
Akabota is a real one in the first days.
So
yes.
She actually said COVID is for white people only during the first days of COVID.
No, it was actually Opam Chinguri, but they are cut from the same cloth. Anyway.
What was it, Opam Chinguri?
Yeah, Vanu Vamwechit and Diana Samanyika, I believe they all think alike. Not to insult our Samanyikas who have got nothing to do with this, but at least.
But you see, there's a sequence of how they do things. Remember Ivan Mawarire?
Yes.
He went through the same.
Yes.
Accusing of trying to overthrow a government. So these people, it's in their blood to target people who are doing the right thing, in the right way. So Ivan Mawara went through. He went to remand. He was in prison. Then they, I don't know how the case ended, but at the end of the day, there is no case.
Yeah, I think what they managed to do with Ivan Mawarire is to silence him, isn't it? I think that's what they're hoping to do here as well.
Yeah,
we haven't been hearing much from Ivan. I think he also has quite a huge following. I would expect him to be at the forefront of trying to highlight these injustices that we are seeing in Zimbabwe. But he's the silence that we are receiving from Ivan is quite deafening, because
it's quite deafening.
because he is one person that went through this, and he should be at the forefront. But to be fair to him, I think he released a statement the other day also, castigating what had happened to a fellow activist, well, maybe journalist rather. Hopo is more of a journalist. Is a journalist, is not an activist. I think the activists we have are those that at the Herald.
Tajamuka, yes.
Yes. Saka, it's interesting, Mr. Advocate, that we have the minister keeping on referring to. I think I've addressed this. Regarding the evidence, Yavarukun's evidence, Yamunayo, Yaguti Hope was involved in trying to overthrow the government. In fact, Haru Mutasa, who asked this question, is a very questionable figure as well, as we know.
Yeah. That's true.
She's very. I would have expected a more aggressive questioning or a follow-up to what the minister is saying here. So we know very well that it leaves a lot to be desired. She's making reference to Florida, the Republic National Convention, which had to be cancelled because of COVID, and then she goes on to say COVID really kills. At the same time, she argues that Black Lives Matter is a movement that is legitimate. She fails to realize that Black Lives Matter is a protest movement. So she's speaking things that she likes from both sides and not acknowledging the fact that some of these movements that she's supporting are movements that are freely allowed to protest in whatever in their jurisdiction. So we have quite an interesting response from the minister. You can tell that, I think you rightfully say that the reason why we cannot, she's hiding behind the mask, but if she didn't have a mask, we would tell that she's lying.
Or to say that they are clamping down the rights for association, I don't think that's the right thing. It's actually coming from the detractors who actually don't care about the lives of the people of this country. And that is sad. And then Leopold, the police are doing their investigations. At this point, they have evidence to what Chingono and Garivume are doing. And I cannot comment whether there will be more arrests or if they have finished their arresting. This is work in progress. I thank
you. You see on that one?
Yes.
Because she's saying that the police, they've got evidence on the arrest of Wopo Chingono and Garivume. Right. The next question is that evidence admissible in a court of law to actually result in a conviction of someone who is actually, accused of trying to overthrow a constitutionally elected government? Is that evidence enough for a conviction? So this is the question that we have to wait for an answer and see how it goes. Because it's not just a matter of saying that you said this, then you are going to prison because of ABC. They have to see the evidence. They have to weigh the evidence against all odds. And does that evidence, or will that evidence result in a conviction to send someone to prison? So
Right.
I think that
she probably does not know much about evidence anyway. I think she is just speaking from it's mind-boggling what we're hearing here. It is interesting. I think we'll just listen to the last bits of her response, then we will be calling it an evening at the top
Last round
of the hour.
burning questions, something which hasn't been asked before. We want to try different media houses. I see Voice of America, Nangula. Please. inga panguva inoi yekushaikwa kwamabasa woramba basa wotoshungurudza kuti wariramba
Is that
zvichikona kupiwa umwe
zvingaiti here?
akaita bandibvudzawo minista kachaini kwakadaro minista yes
when we were sort of pleading to the international community to leave Zimbabwe alone because the COVID-19 effects are also the same to the entire world. Then you want Zimbabwe to fight COVID-19 successfully, like what other countries are doing. But as you say, this is a good statement that you say every country in the world is affected. Isn't it strange that Zimbabwe seems to be the only country that is also taking COVID-19 as a way of imposing a curfew?
Yeah, I think we've lost some there from.
They can become violent, but do you think you are doing the best to make sure that people stay in their homes, they are calm? A hungry man is an angry man.
Okay.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you,
that's it.
Anna.
Another?
1, 2, 3. Different media house. And last question, actually.
Thank you very much. Chile Guamonge from Spotlight Online News Africa. Chimono's bail ruling was yesterday, and on the same day, most people employed in the formal sector struggled to enter the CBD, as the security sector denied their entry, and this is despite the directive by the president allowing formal businesses to remain operational during the current lockdown period. And also during the same day, we had most mobile networks were not functional throughout the whole day. Honorable Minister, would you like to comment on the nature of the Wednesday's day? Thank you.
Thank you. That was the final
That's the last
question.
one, yeah. Okay, thank you.
I apologize because we really have to wrap this up.
Yeah.
And Honorable Minister is now going to speak to the
Thank
four
you.
persons.
Thank you very much Manguti. Ndoda kutenda zvikuru kuti wataura nyaya dzekuti izvo Hopewell achitaura na Hopewell achitaura nemumwe waitaura naye painterview. Zimbabwe, the second republic, when President Mnangagwa got into power in 2018, his
All right, I think we have lost sound there. Okay, we have it back
really
now.
have to wrap this up.
Yeah.
And Honorable Minister is now going to speak to the
Thank
four
you.
persons.
Thank you very much Manguti. Ndoda kutenda zvikuru.
All right, I think that's where the stream ends. There we have managed to look at the whole response from the government regarding the arrest and obviously the denial of bail for Garuvume and Hopewell. And as we highlighted on this show just a few days ago on BTM, that the plan was for the government to deny them bail and wait until they, at least they would then consider the bail after the 31st of July, just to ensure that they will not use their freedom to incite in courts. We know that's not what they were planning to do. They were not planning to incite violence, and they've never, as far as I know, Hopewell, he has always been careful in the way that he has been conducting himself as a journalist, and he understands the situation in Zimbabwe. Obviously, there's no way that he could have put himself in the line of fire like that. But we all know that it is because of the time that he had taken to ensure that he exposes the corruption in Zimbabwe. And this has been the case. And I think WAPO is just one of the many cases that we have seen being used to silence people. So we want to thank you. We want to thank you for listening to this program, and I just want to extend my gratitude to Advocate Chapwanya, who is always willing to give his legal advice on such matters and many others, and including the events that are happening in Zimbabwe. As we conclude this broadcast, we also want to thank you for being part of the audience. We had quite a number of you listening in, and BTM is just almost a few days old. Behind the Mic show, this is a talk show. We are working on different things just to make sure that we bring to you the best from Zimbabwe. And this is one of the shows that is going to be running every day as soon as we launch it fully. The past few days has been more of trying to understand how we can bring this to you. But there are things that we're planning to do as part of BTM and many other programs that we'll be bringing to you on our Facebook page. Zim Daily's plan is to ensure that we have a 24/7 live stream that happens on all the platforms that we manage, and some of the things that we're going to be introducing are topics that have nothing to do with politics. I know politics is not everyone's bread and butter. We want to ensure that we are able to meet the requirements of each one of you. So there are programs like sermons, and also even Zimbabweans generally warm up to them, and we want to find ways on how we can also be looking at the entertainment industry and many other programs that we have planned for you right here on Zim Daily. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Advocate. Can I ask you to just say your parting words as we conclude this?
Thank you very much for this time. All I want to say is that, we as citizens, we do have a duty to take the government to account. Government must be taken to accountability, because at the end of the day, we know this very well, that things are not going well, and that a lot of the government institutions in Zimbabwe, they are compromised. And at the end of the day, it's you, who the citizens, who are going to pay for their errors, or for their omissions or commissions. Because, like, from what we have seen, like this past week about the looting, it's been confirmed that the RBZ debt was taken over by the state, which means that for this debt to be cleared, it's you who has to pay the money back through the taxes that you pay. So, as a matter of concern, these are not the things that you can ignore. It's your duty and your responsibility also to take your part in trying to rebuild the country, so that at least you and your children may have a brighter future. And don't be afraid to take those people in high places to accountability, because we know that a lot of the times they lie, they threaten people, they do this and that, they just put out their propaganda, yet it results in the suffering of people in Zimbabwe. So you have a duty to take them to account, to have them explain why is this happening, why is this there. You see, so if you just keep quiet to say someone sort it out for them, for us, then nothing will happen. So thank you for tuning in, and we hope to be with you time and again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Advocate, and thank you, our audience, for taking a part to listen to this show. And this is us once again, the crew from BTM. We will be with you same time, same place tomorrow. Have a good night wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in this world. May the good Lord bless you in everything you do. Good night.